Welcome everybody. Let's move to the tutorial 2 of our course for Unreal Engine Basics Game Development. In this tutorial, we're going to work on something called as materials. Now, materials, I would like to explain you basically. People who have not worked on 3D softwares before, for them it's really important to understand that what materials are. Well, in Unreal Engine, a material is an asset that can be applied to a mesh to control the visual look of the scene. At a high level, it is probably easiest to think of a material as something like a paint that it is applied to an object. But even that can be a little misleading, since a material literally defines the type of surface from which your object appears to be made of. You can define its color, how shiny it is, whether you can see through the object, and much more. In more technical terms, when light from scene hits the surface, a material is used to calculate how that light interacts with that surface. Although this sounds very technical, but I will try to make sure that I'll explain it as easy as possible. So without further delay, let's move. For this purpose, I would like to actually create a new level in our folder which we already created before. So go to your folder exactly, right click and select level. In the level itself, you will find that it's already there. Now we have created one level. You can rename it. However, to be a very specific in terms of what the level should include or what type of the level it has to be, I'll show you another way of creating a level. So let's delete this one. Okay, delete, and go to file and select new level. In this level, you will see an open world, an empty open world, basic and empty level. For us, for this purpose of material, let's go to and select the basic and create. Once you have created, make sure that you save it. To save it, go to your menu and save current level, and it will ask you where to save the current level. So for our purpose, we'll go to the tutorial game development folder and name it material intro. There you go. If you go to your content drawer, you will see that you have now a level which is called material intro. If you see in this level, we see a floor which is huge, and if we go out actually, and then this is huge in terms of size. We don't need it this big actually for our purpose for this particular tutorial itself. So let's click on it, go to the details panel, just see some of the stuff here. Let's say we scale it on the x-axis 1, y1 and z1. Okay, that's good enough now. So I think this is good enough for us to do the particular tutorial for the materials. The second thing which I need to know, what I need to tell you actually, is to go to the content drawer. Unreal Engine is coming with a lot of assets already as a sample, and it is under a particular folder. You don't see that folder here. For that particular folder to appear, go to settings and select show engine content. As soon as you select that one, you will see there's another folder called engine content, and under the content you can see there's a lot of folders and a lot of assets are there. For our purposes, I think one of them was actually editor meshes. Okay, let me just find out where exactly engine meshes. Yes, that's the one. So here, if you go back and you select engine meshes, this is the engine, this is the 3D mesh which we would like to use in our scene itself. So let's make it space, select your item, the 3D asset, and place it. As yesterday and in the previous tutorial actually which we worked on, let's just rotate it using our gizmos, have it available here, and now you see that actually there is no material applied to it. It is default and there is nothing on it. So we are going to make our first material and apply to it. Go to the content drawer again, go to your tutorial game development folder, right click and select material from this point. For my purpose, I usually use M to signify that this is actually a material, and I will just say my first material. There you go. Double click it, and once you will double click it, you will see there's another screen open just for material itself. We'll try to dock it on the scene so that we can see this view also of our scene itself and the material itself. Now within the screen of the material itself, there are a lot of information available, and we call it actually material graph. If you see at the top, the node which is available here is actually the real node where you are going to connect your colors for the material to take an effect. On the left panel, you see here, this is where the material, when you apply to the material, actually it will be showing as your view. And for every node, there are a set of properties which are available here. If you go to very right on the top corner and you click palette, these are all the functions which we can use in our material graph. For our purpose, we would like to make it some kind of a color actually on this one. For the color, what we need to use is a node called scalar constant vector 3. So let's just bring it and drop the node here. Now this node constant vector 3 represents the RGB colors. If you see 0, 0, 0, and RGB colors are there, so red, blue and green. Now at the moment, if you see, the color is black, and we need to select that what kind of a color we want to give to our material itself. We can either go here and pick the color from the color picker. Let's say we want to go for a red. You see it doesn't show it's red actually, because we need to bring our level up from this particular point, and we're going to make it somewhere on of this nature, or let's say this nature. Click OK, and suddenly you will see that the color is appearing here with all the values which we have selected. Alternatively, you can even select it from here by double clicking it and select any other color you want. The color will not be applied straight away. You need to click OK. So to make sure, as of now, it's going to show the preview of it, but make sure that you click OK and the color will be available. Now the next thing is, if you see here, you have small dots here, and these are called connectors basically on the nodes actually. And if you click on it and left mouse click and you drag out, you can see there is a pin which is coming out, and it needs to be connected to some particular node, and the node connector here at this moment. Now before we go into details, base color is the actual color which is going to show on the material itself. How shiny it has to be, that's where the metallic part comes, which also I will explain you. Specular is another identification of how the material should look in terms of its outline, in terms of its light itself. And roughness, these are the most basic ones which are going to be used in throughout a lot of when materials are being built. So let's take the pen out of it and bring it into the base color. Now on the left panel, kindly see that we have our material reflecting in our preview and showing that this is how your material will look like. By the way, if you don't want to see it in a sphere form, you have different options to be selected from here. If you want to see it in cylinder view, you can click cylinder, plane, cube. Well, that's not the one. Okay, this is the cube, and you can view for this purpose, just to understand how your color might look on different assets itself. For our tutorial, we'll just stay to sphere and let it be shown here exactly and all the time. Now if you see here and we go back on our viewport, and if we go to the content browser itself and we pick up our what you call material itself, and we drop it on the asset where we want to apply the material itself. So before doing that one, we'll select our asset, content draw, select the material and just drag and drop on it. You see here at the moment there's nothing here. There's there's a point why it is not showing. Go back to the material section itself and click apply. This is going to compile our material in order to make sure that the color is there and it can apply to any of the asset which you have in your scene itself. So let's click apply. It will take time just to compile, and there you go, our first material with our first color is shown in our scene itself. So you can just move around and also see from different angle by panning it and see exactly that this is how the material will look like in your scene itself. Now, as you have seen that the color is showing here, let's say you want to change the color of it, and we go back and let's move to green itself, and we have green and we press OK, give it a time just to compile, and we have green color now available. And if we go back and we see that okay, we have not seen the color changing on our particular asset, it is still the same. What you need to do, which you need to remember all the time, you need to click apply and compile, which will compile it and it will affect the material on your asset in your real world. So click apply, changes will take, and there you go. Now you have our material which is applied of a different color itself, and it is available for you to navigate around and see and different shading the way the light is reflecting on this case. Next we will go into more details of how the material can be changed by utilizing different properties of this particular node, which is metallic, roughness, and I'll show you exactly how these materials will reflect in your real world itself. Okay, let's move further and creating our material and adding some more details to it. I'll go back and select my color back. I think red was looking good. Actually green is kind of quite flashy in this case, so let's just make it red. Now let's say you want to increase the roughness or decrease the roughness basically of your material at the moment. To do that, you have a pin which is called roughness, which requires an input, and that input is going to be a constant value, which is going to be a number between 0 to 1 or even increase for that one. And to do selecting that one, what you need is constant 1. So this is the function which you're going to use and drop it here. By the way, you can select your functions from here, and alternatively if you right mouse click, it will be also available here. So let's say we'll type a constant again and we select the constant and it is available here. So two ways are there, you can select whichever way easier for you. I usually maybe right click and do the things like this. So let's move one of them, and let's take this particular constant and add it to our roughness. If you click on roughness, and you will see the results of it, you will see that your material is very shiny at the moment. It's reflecting a lot of light, a lot of environment at the moment. Why? Because the value is 0 at the moment. So let's say we want to make it 1. You will see the roughness part is totally blank. There's no roughness on it. It's just simple diffuse color with no shading. Nothing is appearing at the moment. So let's say we have 0, give it a 0.5 value just for the sake of it, or I think let's try to make it a little bit more, 0.7 let's say. So yeah, so you have 0.7 value actually at the moment. I think it's on the bottom right actually in this set, 0.2. So 0.2 means that the roughness is going to increase in this case, and actually decrease actually in this case. And once decreasing is there, you can start seeing that it is reflecting all around it. Click apply, go back to your scene, and there you go. You can see that your material is reflecting the world is around it, and you can see that even the clouds are being shown here at the moment. It is showing within your material itself, and it's reflecting very nicely. You can see the sun part of it, which is also available within Unreal Engine as a component. And this is how the roughness works itself. Let's go and check if we want to make our material very metallic look. For that purpose, again, we have a pin called metallic itself, in which we're going to select another constant, and it is also going to get a constant value for that. So right click, constant, and save. By the way, there's another option you can do this. Let's say we delete it. We click on the constant value which we already have, and we press Ctrl D, and you will have a duplicate value of that one, of the same node itself. We can pick a pin from here and attach to the metallic part of it. If you see on the left, nothing much is there. And why nothing much is there? Because we have to increase the value of the metallic constant variable. So let's say 1. There you go. Now you can see that our material is quite shiny. It has a very metallic look into it. Now at this point, you can increase and decrease and play around with your particular values of roughness and metallic to the look and feel the way you want. So let's say we increase the roughness and see how metallic look will change in that case. Well, it's not very much metallic anymore now, I guess. So let's say we have 0 for roughness, and there you go. Very shiny metallic part of it, which is available to you now. And if we click apply, always remember that, and we go, and there we have it. If you see here, we have a very metallic look of our particular material itself, and it has been applied to asset, and it looks like a metal itself. Now we can play with the values. I'll say, let's say, give it a value of 0.1, just to have a little increase in terms of the roughness of it, rather than having a total metallic look into it. And click apply, and there you go. So as soon as you apply, you have your material updated in your viewport, and it is showing the way it is required to be shown by, in your case, whatever game you're going to build on it. After this, let's move on and go into some more details of it. So at some point, maybe you want to also add up other aspect of the material itself. One of them is actually called emissive color. In emissive color, what will happen that the red node which you have here for the vector is going to emissive the color in the form of light. So let's say we remove it, our pin from here. By the way, let's say you want to disconnect these particular pins from each of them. All you need to do is press Alt, click left mouse click button, and that's all. Your pin will be disconnected. Pick a pin again and add it to your emissive color. If you see on the left side, there you go. Now you have a very light color in this case. It is not actually giving you the red color itself at the moment, because it is it is creating a light out of this color itself. And let's say if we apply to it and we go back, and you see that your material has a total emissive color. It is not white, but actually it is light color. It's a color which is just made out of light itself. So this kind of materials will be used in the future for different kind of assets, where you might require an asset to emit light for your environment, for let's say for any ambience purpose. Actually, we will get into details for that in upcoming tutorials. For now, let's just put it back into metallic and as it is, and we are done for these two particular properties of the material itself. In the next one, I will take you forward with some of the other properties which can be used, and those are called textures, and that will give you a little bit more understanding that how we can actually use images which have textures and apply to a material to give it more detail in that case. So let's move on, and we'll try to define our material more into more realistic looking material itself. For that purpose, let's go for the metallic and decrease the value of it to 0. And if you see here, it looks very much like a plastic at the moment. If we apply and go back to our scene, you can see that the whole look has changed, and it looks like a plastic acid itself, and it has very uniform structure of it. However, if we want to add details to our structure and have less uniformity over it, this is where we're going to use textures. So let's go back to our material graph itself. In the content drawer, let's go to content drawer, and under the starter content folder, there is textures folder, which has all the images of textures, and I have a very specific texture which I would like to use. It's called T_Perlin noise, and I'll just left mouse click, drag it, and drop it in my particular material graph. Now, at the moment, we want to use this value, and if we double click on it, and let's say double click on the texture itself, this is how the texture looks like. So we have black and white color actually, and we're gonna use this black and white textures in our particular material to give more details to the overall look and feel of the material itself. So if we remove the roughness, so left mouse click, alt left mouse click, and we plug the RGB value of our texture into roughness, and you will see now that it has added some details based on what the texture is under the color of red itself. Let's click apply and see how it looks like on our world itself. And there you go. You can see here that it has now details. It looks a little bit realistic, and it has more details to overall plastic itself. The other way of looking into details of this particular material is to actually move the sun, which is available here. You can press Ctrl L and left mouse click, and you can move around the sun to see from different angles how the material shines up in this sunlight itself. There you go, and this is how the look or feel at the moment is available. So let's say we want to have our material having two different colors. So all the areas which are white, we would like to have it. Let's say go back again and open the, wherever we have white, we want to make a look like it's a brown color itself, and wherever it is black, we would like to have the red color, which is already added to it. So let's click on our node of the color scalar vector and duplicate it. So we have a duplicate color now exactly, and in this particular node we want to change it to, let's say, more of a little, I'll say, of this brownish color itself. So now we have two different colors, and we want to use, wherever there is white, it should be brown, and wherever there is black, it should be red itself. To mix the colors, actually, we need another node which is called linear interpolate node. Click on it, and it will be available to you now. What we need to do is actually, first of all, press Alt, left mouse click, just disconnect it, connect this particular node into B, and plug it, this one into B. Actually, the first one is into A, the second one is into B. And since we want these colors, the red, to be shown on based on the textures here, we're going to drive our alpha value of particular node with our textures. So let's just plug this one into alpha. Now finally get into the base color, and there you go. If you see here, you will see that wherever there was white, we have brown, and wherever there is red, wherever there is black, we have a red color. I think let me try to make it a little bit more obvious, and let's try to change the color of it, and and see how it looks like even with the yellow itself. Okay, let's just compile, and there you go. So now you see that we have a total different material look and feel. And if we apply and go back to our scene, you will see that we have a much better looking texture, which is very much realistic and is based on our textures. Now, at the moment, I want to add something to our scene itself. It's called post-process volume. So if you go up and click on it, under the visual effects, you click post-process volume and you just put it here. Now, at the moment, I will not go into details, a lot of details for the post-process volume, but because if you look at it and if you move around and you see there is an exposure which automatically updates, and this is where we don't need that exposure to be automatically updating. We just want post-process control to make sure that the exposure is actually same in every place what we have at the moment. So let's go back here under the post-process volume, under the details of process volume. Let's say exposure, type exposure, and click meteor mode. Go to manual, exposure compensation. We have another property called bound, infinite bound. Okay, and click that one. Just check it. At the moment, you will see that our scene at the moment is unlit because there is no exposure at the moment. Let's go back and type exposure, and it's manual, and we just increase the value of it, and we'll start looking at our scene. And now you see that our material looks much better, much realistic, and this is all based on the textures which we have at the moment, and we placed it here. And if we now move around the sun, Control L, you can see here how the reflections are working on our textures at the moment and how the shadows are being created in this case. So that's how we apply a texture to our material. By the way, let's give some kind of material to the floor itself. So you go to the content drawer, under the starter content, go to your materials. We have a lot of other materials available. I'll just try to pick one. So it's called moss, m underscore ground moss, and just place it here. And there you go. It's that easy. Now, since this material is already created under the content folder, we don't need to do anything. But I'm just trying to make sure that you understand that how your world start getting built and how to make it look realistic. When you are going to build your games, of course the games are going to be of different nature, but because of the current trends, the more realistic the environment is, the more engaging it is for the users to basically play the game itself. And Unreal Engine is best known for its rendering, real-time rendering, because this is all happening in real time, which is the best part of Unreal Engine, and it gives you a lot of flexibility in from an artistic aspect to build your world and build your games around it and do a lot of stuff, fancy stuff, which you can give it to your users, your the gamers, which will be required will be really interested to play with your particular game itself. Next, we will go into more details in terms of how to parameterize basically the material, and instead of every time going and increasing and decreasing the values of it from the material, how you can do it real-time update based on parameters and based on something called material instances. So before we go into our material graph to parameterize it and to change the values on a real-time basis, I would like to take you through a process of creating your own material based on textures, and it will be a brand new material just for the floor, and we'll replace this particular mossy grass texture based on our new texture because textures and the material which we are going to create. I have already downloaded some of the textures which are available, and what I'm going to do actually, let's just go back, open your textures, pick them, go to your content folder, and first actually go to the content folder, go to your what you call tutorial games folder. Let me just close this one and pick these 3 textures and just drag them into your folder itself. Okay, let's see if it's there. Okay, so at the moment, if you see here, it's showing a star sign here. It's basically asking us to make sure that we save them, and let's say we click save all, save selected. Okay, let's see, and there you go. So all our levels, all the things which we have done till now on this particular level has been saved. Now let me take you to the different types of textures which are available and which we have downloaded. This is the one for albedo. It is also called diffuse, and sometimes it's called base texture itself. For the base texture, we need our sRGB colors to be enabled so that we get the colors from itself. However, for the other two, for normal map, let's say for the roughness map first, we need to disable the RGB value for it. You will not be able to see that what's actually going on here, but once we'll have it available in the material, you will see that how it's reflecting on your material itself. Okay, so let's say we save it and close. We also need our normal map. Normal map looks like this. Basically, the normal map is used to mimic the height and the different shadows of your particular material. So when the light reflects over it, it will create shadows and it will not look flat. Your material will not look flat. And if you see, the Unreal Engine has already understood that it's a normal map, so that's why it has disabled it, the sRGB. So we are good to go as we have our textures already imported. Now for this one, I'll just close this particular material. Let's say save. Okay, content drawer, our new one, and we create a new material called m underscore floor. There you go. Open it. Once it is opened, make sure that it is docked on your screen so that you can navigate between the both. Zoom in with your mouse wheeler and go to your content folder, select all of these textures and just drag them into your material graph. There you go. Let's just place them in the right form. Okay, roughness and albedo at the top. Okay, sorry. There you go. Now it's very simple. You just pick the RGB value and do the base color for the albedo texture. You pick the roughness and you put the one into the roughness node itself. You can see that our texture is being shown here. It looks pretty decent at the moment. Let's just apply it before we assign it to the floor itself. Go to your world, go back here, select your floor and just drop this particular material and let it compile for the thing. Now you see here that there are 2 things which are not correct here. One is that the tiles are just too small. It's just not looking, it's just not the correct size itself. And another thing is that there is no shadows between these tiles itself, and it looks like that as if it's kind of like a mat or like a wallpaper kind of stuff. So to fix this particular thing, that's where the normal maps comes into picture. And as you understand, we can pick the normal and just plug it into the normal pane itself. There you go. And you see here that we have a little bit of details now because of the normal map. Let's apply and see that what results do we get. And there you go. Now you see that there are actually, the normal map is making sure that the spaces between the tiles have shadows and it's emitting in that way, and it is showing that it's more realistic look of your overall texture. And this is how you have created your first material, which allows you to make a very realistic look on the material itself and your overall game look and feel. However, we need to fix another issue here exactly, and which is basically the tiling and to make the size bigger. So let's go back into the m underscore floor material, and we need to add another node called texture coordinates. There you go. Just click on it and add it to your UVs of each of the texture, and just assign it, just plug it. There will be no change at the moment. However, in the texture coordinates you have values called U tiling and vertical tiling. So these are tiling which will go into X and Y direction as you increase them and decrease them. So at the moment, since our tiles are much smaller, we need to make them look bigger actually. So let's try and play around the values, and let's say, like, okay, let's say we have 0.3 here and 0.3 there. Let's see, have a view, and you can straight away see that our texture has, the overall look and feel has changed, because the size of these textures are now driven by the texture coordinates value in X and Y direction, and it has increased the overall size. Let's apply and see exactly how it looks like on the floor itself. And there you go. You see, now it looks much better, much normal. The tiling is in a correct form, and we are able to make sure that no unrealistic looks are there for your texture itself. Of course, you can always go back and increase and decrease. Let's say 0.5 and 0.5 again, and let's say how it looks like. Apply and just wait, and there you go. So it's now a little bit smaller. I guess this looks still fine, better than the first one. And this is how you basically make sure that your texture is being and your material is being applied to your asset in a form where it makes the look and feel from a perspective of a user more realistic and more into in its own parametric look and feel for the texture itself. So I'll take you in the next one basically for how we can now parameterize our values of the material itself, and that will give you a little bit more understanding that how you can easily control without keep on going and changing the values in this particular material graph itself. Okay, so next thing is that how we going to make sure that instead of every time going to our material graph and keep on updating coordinates and pressing applying and then going back and checking, we need to make it more make it more parameterized. So let's start first with the parameters and add the parameters for now, and then later we will expose for that. So for our texture coordinates, if you see, the values here are being driven through U tiling and V tiling. Let's just make it 0 at the moment to their default value, and add a node called multiply. So we have multiply here, and instead of these textures linked to the texture coordinates, I would like to link it to the multiply node. So let's say Alt left mouse click, just disconnect all of them, connect these to each of the textures UVs. Okay, and that's how it's connecting. And we have a texture coordinate going to the A, and we are going to add a constant parameter here, which will be used as a source of value to increase and decrease the overall look of how our what you call the material will look. Just plug it into the B. Once it's plugged into the B, at the moment you won't see any difference here. We need to increase the value, let's say 0.5, and we see there is no much change in it. Let's say for 20. At the moment we don't have any change in this one. Okay, I guess it has to be 0.3 here, 0.3 here, and we have the values, and then overall look and feel of how wide the tile should be. We can control it from this particular point, which will of course drive both the u and v value of the texture coordinates. So in this case we have 20, and let's say we'll try to make it now 4. So let's make it lesser value in this case, and there you go. Now we can see that it has applied our value based on what we decide here. If we click apply here, it looks almost the same, but let's say we increase the value to, let's say, 20. Well, actually we need to make it smaller, so let's let 2 and 1, I guess. Let's see how it looks like. There you go. So now we have the values in this case. I apologize, basically it's the values which needs to be lesser. The more lesser you will have, the more wider your material will look like in this case. Let's say you want to have some kind of a tint to your color of the texture, and you want to play with that particular color itself, and you want to make it look more different than its actual texture color itself. So we'll just select all these nodes and just move it back into left to have a little bit space, as we're going to add some nodes here. Disconnect this one, multiply again, and we have it here, and we plug the RGB value into B. We add another scalar component for the color itself. Scalar, okay, it was constant, sorry, constant vector 2. Well, actually it's constant vector 3. Constant vector 3. There you go. And we plug it into A, and then we plug it into the base color. Now at the moment, if you see, it's all black, and that's why it has not giving any color to our actual textures. And if you want to increase, and let's say we go to more reddish kind of color, and then just move it a little bit here, move it up a little bit, and a little bit of LED, and then press OK, and let's see how it looks like. There you go. So our main texture color was looking like this, but adding a tint, we have given it a different look and feel. Let's click apply. There you go. And there you go. So our floor now has a tint and with a red color, which quite looks very different than the original one. But that's how you control, basically, if you want to decrease, increase or decrease different properties of your texture itself. Now let's move to the main part of it and create an instance of our material. An instance is actually a parameterized component of your material, in which you will be exposing some of the parameters here in order for real-time update, and rather than going back to the material graph and applying every time, you can control it just from the instance itself on real time. So right click your material and create material instance. It will create the material instance. If you can see it here, m_floor_instant. Save all, just to make sure. Sometimes Unreal Engine crashes also, and you might lose your work in that case. So in our instance, let's just open it, and you will see that you have different set of properties here at the moment. It is just showing you that the parent material for this instance is basically mFloor, but there are no parameters here at the moment which we can use in order for the real-time usage of this particular instance. So let's go to the mFloor, and we want to, let's say, increase or basically change this particular value to a parameter. Just right click it and say convert to parameter. It will ask you the name. So let's say we call it tiling size. Okay, and we have tiling size. If you go to the instance, you will see still there is nothing, because we have to apply it. As soon as we apply it and we go to the instance, you will see your parameter is available here in your instance. So let's say we click tiling size now, and tiling size is available. It has the same value, which is the value which we already entered in our tiling size here. The default value is 1, and here we can use now increase and decrease the value, but this value will only reflect on your material in your world if the floor has a material which is not the floor plan but rather an instance of the floor plan. So go to the content drawer and let me just give it a little bit space here. I think it's too much here in this case. And okay, there you go. Select the instance and drag it and drop it here. Now your floor material is actually a m underscore floor plus underscore instant. Now it means that this instance at the moment is being applied to your overall look and feel of the material. I'll just undock it just to give you a little bit of understanding that how real-time parameters work without going to the floor plan itself. Now let's say we increase and decrease. Here you go. So this is how in real time your textures are being applied with the tiling parameter, which is already given into our material. And now you can easily no need to go back to the underscore floor and applying it every time. Here you can control all the things. Let's go to the underscore floor and have another parameter, which was basically the tint, which we added, and add this one and convert it to parameter. So this, let's say, color tint. So there you go. Color tint is there. Now before you make it available in the instance, what you have to do, click apply. There you go. And if you go back here and select, you will see that you have another parameter available in your instance. It's called color tint. And if you go back to your world and you select the color tint and you move around, and now straight away everything is working and everything is being controlled in real time. No need to update anything. Here you can do updates over it. You can perform whatever color you want to do, and of course it allows lot of flexibility for basically the artists who are under game development to build their environments in a much faster and agile way. And it is a very powerful function of Unreal Engine, which takes you forward and basically up paces the game development process for that thing. Next, what we will do, actually we will get into details of how we can further control other parameters of the material itself, but that will be in a later tutorial itself. Currently I would like to make sure that you have a total understanding of how materials are being done, how materials are being created, and based on this one, now you see that we have a very nicely realistic looking floor and realistic looking asset itself. By the way, these gizmos are always showing. Actually you can hide them by pressing G, and so that you can easily see what is available, and to bring the gizmos back, just press G and it will be back. So I think that wraps up the material part of it and how the instances work. And furthermore, we will get into more details of how to control the normal map and have it as a parameter, how to add another texture for the same instance, and you can keep on changing for different materials. This will give you a lot of understanding of overall flexibility of Unreal Engine in terms of making your scenes look really good and realistic.